Come for the bread, stay for the politics. I'm Ben Walsh, and this is Let Them Eat Bread. Welcome back to Let Them Eat Bread. I know it's been a while. Thank you for your patience. And wow, has there been a lot of news that's happened in the last 2 weeks. Obviously, the thing that we're going to spend the most time talking about is Ukraine, but as always, there will be a special segment for those who stick around for the politics segment that won't be put into segments on YouTube later on. So stick around and figure out what that is. This week for our bread, we are making a buttermilk loaf. It's supposed to only make one loaf, but I've tried baking this before, and it actually comes out much better as it comes out so big as one loaf that today we're going to try it as two. So we're gonna move around some of the times for rising, especially on the back end. And with that said, let's get started.
We are going to start with half a cup of water between 100 and 115 degrees, just putting that into our little mixing bowl here. Next up, we have a tablespoon of regular white sugar. This is the only sugar we put in. Next, we have 2 packages or 1.5 tablespoons of active dry yeast. Now give that a little bit of a stir. We are going to set this aside once we stir it nice and thoroughly. You're not trying to dissolve necessarily, just get everything thoroughly mixed up. Then give that a cover and put that to the side. Next up, we are going to take our flour. We have 4 cups of unbleached hard wheat flour, or AP flour if you can't find it. And to that, we are going to add 1 tablespoon of salt. You know the game I play, I'm always guesstimating, but this is about a tablespoon of salt in here. Next up, we are going to add our melted butter. This is 3 tablespoons of melted butter. I recommend unsalted. And then finally, we are going to add our 1.5 cups of buttermilk. You can use full fat or low fat. It will not change this recipe significantly, so just pour in what you need and then we'll get to mixing. So our mixing is going to start out pretty slow. You can see that I have used a bowl that's probably a little too small here. If you're in a standing mixer, you just want it on the stir setting. Essentially, you're just putting this all together, and you can see that after a while, it comes together in this shaggy dough. Last, right before we turn it out on our board, we're going to add our yeast mixture, which has been blooming, and then give it one final mix here. Again, slowly making sure that you don't get any of that yeast mixture on your board. That way you get as much moisture in this dough as possible. You're going to need it. All right, so you can see that after some mixing, it is a pretty hearty, shaggy dough, and we're just going to dump that out on our board. Just making sure that you get all of the fun flour and other bits out of your bowl. You are going to have to add flour to this anyway, but the best thing you can do is just make sure you get all the ingredients out of the bowl in the first instance. All right, so now you can see that, well, I've sped up the footage, but you start slow, you just kind of combine it. The dough will feel very wet. That's okay, add flour where needed. And as you can see, after a bit of kneading, it does come together. And as I mentioned, we're going to add some flour. I did this 4 or 5 times. You can do it as many times as you need to, but don't do too much. That way, you remember you want it to be tacky and not sticky, but you also don't want it to be too dry. This is a nice, lovely dough. And now that we've finished our kneading, about 10 minutes, we're just going to make sure this is in a beautiful ball form before we take off our little piece to do the window pane test. And let's just speed that up because this is always the longest part. Okay, so excuse the musical interlude. We have, and we're good. We have enough. So we've put our piece of dough back on our bread, put it back into a ball before we prep it for rising. We're taking a teaspoon of olive oil and putting it in a glass bowl in which we will rise our bowl, and we are just carefully making sure that every nook and cranny of this glass bowl has oil on it, just enough so that our bread does not stick. We are not trying to add oil to this recipe. So just make sure your bread is in the right shape, put it in the bowl, give it a quick toss, make sure that you have oil on every side. Remember, you are lubricating your bread so it doesn't dry out during the rising. And then we are going to throw some plastic wrap over that. Use something more sustainable if you have it, but I don't. And once that is added, we are going to put a tea towel over and then set our timer.
All right, so we have prepared our bread. It is now set to rise. We've set about an hour for a timer. You can do this for up to an hour and a half. Remember, as I said earlier, we're going to be pushing this bread kind of to the limits of its ability to rise. So the more time, the merrier. When we get back from the break, from the politics segment, we're actually going to do our bread, have it rise in the tins for another hour and a half. So Take a long time to rise this. Make sure it's more than doubled in bulk each time you finish with it. And then once you've done that, you can move on to the next steps that we talk about. So no pressure. Take your time with this bread. The bread is very forgiving. It's got a ton of yeast in it, and it's going to be really great broken out into 2 loaves.
And we are back, and ta-da, look at that nice rise. Now, I highly recommend that you do yours for longer, probably another half hour, but that's okay. We're going to punch our dough down, give it a quick knead just to get it back to shape. Remember, it's well kneaded, so you don't really need to do too much here. Then we are going to weigh our bread, because as I mentioned, we're making this into 2 loaves instead of 1. And we're just going to divide, and as you can see, I'm about to do it very poorly, and I'm going to need to try over and over and over and over again until I finally, come on, Ben, you got it. Come on. And I got it right. Very good. All right, so we've got our 2. What we're going to do with each one is we're going to flatten them out as into a rough as rectangle as you can. We're then going to take each corner, stretch it out, and then pull it in. Stretch out, pull in, stretch out, pull in. And we're going to do this for all of our corners, and then we will have created 4 new corners. We're going to do that with those corners as well. So just each one, roll it out, and you'll get a nice little log shape when you roll it over. We're going to do that with both of these loaves. All right, so now put them into your 9 by 5 by 3 inch bread tins, 2 of them in this case, and we're going to cover these and set these to rise for an hour and a half to 2 hours, okay? As long as you need more than double in size so that they fill the loaf tins completely, okay? Once you do that, you're going to set your oven for 375 degrees Fahrenheit and cook for 40 minutes in the middle rack. And you will know they're done because they will be beautiful golden brown, but also they'll register a temperature of 205 degrees Fahrenheit, and they will sound hollow and knocked. All right, guys, that is it for this week. I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching this video, guys. If you liked it, throw a like on it, share with your friends, and subscribe for more of our content. You can also find all of our videos and clips on youtube.com. Just search Let Them Eat Bread and you'll find all of our content. Alright guys, see you next time. Bye for now.